We'll call this budget workshop to order. We'll just go ahead and kick it off, and we have Mr. Matthew Horton first on the agenda, sir, IT. Thank you for being here.
We go? There we go.
Yeah, fresh batteries went in there yesterday.
Yeah, good deal. All right, well, good morning, everybody. So, looking at the IT budget, we landed pretty much exactly where we thought we were going to since the January meeting. Not a lot has changed. A couple of positive developments are we're minus 2 decision packages that we thought we were going to have that turns out we didn't need. The officer phones, we ended up getting those for free because of a Verizon promotion. So those have already been purchased and they're in use. And then the police RMS software licensing upgrade, due to an error on the software company's part, we ended up getting that for free too. So that's already in operational. So yeah, I'm not going to complain. So I'm looking at our line item justification form, and I'm just going to run down from top to bottom our various items as to what's changed and what we're requesting. Starting at the very top with our contract, no changes there for this year. It's exactly the same as it was. You guys aren't really doing anything new, so there's no need to adjust it. The telephone line item is just a slight bump due to adding lines. So we've added some lines throughout the years, and that's the costs have slightly creeped up as a result of that, but pretty minor. The major one is actually the dues, which is the next one, is a significant jump from last year in operational costs, and that is 100% Microsoft fees. So we've added a couple of users, which bumps the fees up a little bit, but the primary driver of that is that they have just increased fees. So again, this is our email, cloud email system and Microsoft Office licensing that we have to pay for on an annual basis, and the cost per user for that has just increased across the board pretty significantly. So it's unfortunate, but it's critical to the operation of everything, so we have to kind of bite the bullet on that one. Then for our first decision package, we have the modules and upgrades for the website to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So again, those costs ended up being exactly where they thought they were going to be. So just a reminder for that, we're required by law to comply. If we don't, we face potential fines and litigation. The deadline, I believe, is sometime, 2027,
It's,
something like
yeah.
that. So in order to do that, this adds a new module, a navigation aid, and then some software to create compliant PDF files for like the meeting minutes and other things that are published to the public. So, any questions on that one? Gotcha. Looking at our subscriptions, again, a slight cost bump just due to vendor prices increasing. We've also absorbed some software costs from planning and zoning into ours that were added this year. So that represents the entirety of the increase there. Then we have 2 capital expense decision packages. One is the new firewalls, which we went over last time. Again, we're getting new, better hardware for the same cost as it would take us to renew the licensing service agreements on the existing models. There's really no reason not to do it because we would have a $10,000 cost to keep the old models in operation anyway. So again, that one's just you just might as well. And then the police MDTs, the 2 existing ones that we want to replace are super old. They're at the end of their service life and they're starting to have hardware problems too. So we really want to replace those. And then the third requested one, it turns out that they've already hired that officer. So they're already in a situation where they're having to share. So that really reduces their operational efficiency where they have to trade an extra unit back and forth to keep everybody in operation over there. So we'd really like to add an extra so that they don't have to do that anymore. And that's about it. Like I said, it ended up being pretty much in line with what we thought it was going to be.
What questions do we have, if any? Pretty straightforward.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Have you heard from Trevor or no?
He did not text back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder if he-
Not on a boat in the Caribbean somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I texted Josh.
That's it, Josh. Sounds good.
yeah.
Still rocking back and forth.
Yeah, we're flying through these things every year now.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to call him.
We've had that in place for 18, 19 years now with, it was One Who Serves, now they're WNC Business IT Solutions, and it has worked really well for us. I mean, we feel like it's kept our costs manageable and probably less expensive than if we had hired staff, versus contracting it out. Pardon me? They are, it's like, I don't want to jinx this here, but it's like, it doesn't seem like there's anything he can't figure out or their company can't. And it's, even though Matthew's the owner, he's still very hands-on and doing a lot of the field work here, but they know what they're doing, they fix it, so it's just, it's been really good service.
Started at breakfast
Yeah.
at 8:30. See, y'all may have left because Mark gave me
breakfast
a
was
list of all
8:30.
my stuff.
I hope I didn't
There we go.
communicate that wrong.
I'm on my game.
Yeah, you have to rub that in a little bit, right?
I'll Xerox him a copy.
There you go. All right, Josh, how you doing?
How are you? Good morning.
Floor is yours.
How's everyone?
Good.
I catch my breath. I saw Matthew coming out, and I said, "Oh, it's my turn." I run up and get my cheeks. So sorry. So, all right, let me start. I would just like to say, before I start, give some love to my staff. The park is, the vibe over there, the energy, and it's crowded, as you see. You come to our park all the time. We have soccer, baseball, so our staff does an excellent job. Aaron is doing a really good job, so just want to give him a shout out.
Who's the blonde-haired girl that works down there on the weekends?
Blair.
Blair. She does a fabulous job of being polite to everybody, making sure the trash cans are, I just saw her for wiping them, washing them all down one day. And
It makes me feel good that she's there on the weekends when it's the business.
She's very responsible. She does a fabulous job just
I'm glad you noticed that.
viewing from the outside in.
And I'll make sure I tell her that.
Yeah, so please.
Just wanted to give them a shout out before I started, so. Wanted to go over some events and programs that we're going to offer in 26 and 27 before the budget. So, and I'll kind of go slow, and if you have questions about any of the events, just ask me.
We're ahead of schedule, so you can go slow.
Yeah, so sorry.
As long as you guys are okay with that. Yeah, really.
Nick through your nose, out through your mouth. Okay, so we've introduced art to our programs. So this year, we're going to have 4 guided theme painting nights, 2 at the park, and then 2 in a multi-purpose room. And they've been well attended, so we're going to keep doing that. Our father-daughter dance, Easter egg hunt, which is this weekend. We're really going to focus on pickleball. So we're going to offer 8 pickleball clinics, beginner, advanced. We're really going to grow in the pickleball world. I guess that's what's hot, so we're going to roll with it. We do fall, winter, spring yoga. Every time we put it on our website, it's sold out quick, so we're going to keep rolling with the yoga. We're going to do 2 summer yoga in the park. People really like that. It's nice weather. It's a nice park to have yoga. We're doing open play pickleball on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. And how that works is I reserve all the courts. People come and play that are new to the game, want to find partners to play with. So we're doing that 4 times a week right now. A new event for the love of pets, so it's a resource for pets, for dogs and cats. It's an adoption event for animals, so we're going to do that again. We already have 41 vendors for that, so
Wow.
When is that gonna be?
it's April the 25th, that's a Saturday.
That'll be in coordination with the shred event.
Oh, perfect, you can send them over to us.
Yeah.
How long does that go for that day?
It starts at 10 o'clock and it'll go until 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So, we're going to do the Fletcher Farmers Market 16 weeks again. People are excited about that. We already have vendors signed up. And we're going to add some new stuff to our market, have some singers, some bounce houses, just to attract more people to attend Tuesday Market. Having our Memorial Golf Tournament, it's coming up May 22nd. 9-week summer day camp program. 2 summer concerts this year. We're gonna do a pickleball league in the fall. Katie is our pickleball clinic instructor. She's gonna run a league for us for pickleball. Fall Festival, Halloween Crawl, Veteran Salute, Santa's Letters, and Christmas in the Park. So that's kind of a rundown of our events. Like I said, we're going to focus on pickleball. It's hot right now, and we'll roll with it. So, any questions about?
You have a great calendar.
Yeah, come visit us.
Sounds good.
All right.
You can, in the screens, I don't know if you all seen the wind screens, so those are up, and those were paid for privately.
American.
Yep, by A-American. So the
Wind
electrician.
screens at our
would do
pickleball
work.
courts.
Yeah.
What's up with our school boards? They're just gone
Yep,
forever?
yep. They do not work, so we got rid of
Yeah.
them. If you don't see
They
them, you
don't
don't worry
work.
about it. I encourage the league to do Game Changer or Sports Engine. That's what the app they're using, and they can keep score on the apps. It's easy. So, any other questions about program or events?
I
Okay.
don't think so.
I have 2 big asks, and one is for one of our events. I'm asking for fireworks for our fall festival. Ever since I've joined the town of Fletcher, I've heard about, please bring back fireworks, please bring back fireworks. I'm like, nah, they're too expensive, but I feel like coming after Helene, and I think it's time to bring fireworks back to the fall festival. So we'd run the festival like, normal vendors, a kid zone, and we would just end with a fireworks show. And I've located a guy that does the fireworks. He's the same guy that does the Hendersonville for the 4th of July. Awesome show. He links his show with music. So he would do a 20-minute show for $8,000. Any questions about that?
And typically it's cheaper, people always ask about 4th of July fireworks, and we get calls every time, and it's much cheaper to do fireworks on non-4th of July. So we've always wanted that, we've done it, we might have done it at a different time, so it'd be a little bit more.
So I asked him about the 4th of July, because we don't do a 4th of July event, and he said it'd be a $20,000 cost on 4th of July, rather than an $8,000 cost at our fall festival. So thanks for bringing that up.
And there's fireworks going on the 4th of July everywhere, so I don't think there's a
Yeah,
shortage
lots
of
of
it.
fireworks.
Yeah.
So that would attract a lot of people to our fall festival. It is one of our biggest events now without fireworks, so I have to get help, fire department, police station, all that good works, but we'll work on the logistics of it if it gets approved.
Wonderful. Any questions there?
I've heard the same thing from residents, so.
Have you?
Yeah, bring back the fireworks.
Every year, I'm like, nah. So I'm like, it's time to bring it, so.
Yeah.
All right, and the next thing I'm asking for is a new Polaris. One of our staff totaled one of our Polarises last year. So total, the insurance did cover a little bit cost, but nothing for a new one. We do have two Polarises and one John Deere. One Polaris is on its last leg. It has 4,000 work hours on it, and it's about to be auctioned off. So I'm asking for a new Polaris. They help with events, they help with everyday maintenance, trash, all that good stuff. So that's another ask I'm asking for a Polaris, and it's $16,500, I believe.
I'm sure that's a pretty big need for the park.
It is, we need it.
What other questions, comments? I don't think we got any there. Oh,
That's all I have, if you don't have any questions.
any
My line
other?
items are pretty similar to last year.
Yeah, maybe just
so-
wanna-
Sounds good then. Oh, any other questions?
The major increases, yeah, Josh really hit the highlights. The decision packages were the biggest expense impact.
And I'll be updating like the wages, salaries.
Oh, yeah, thanks for
the middle
mentioning.
Performance evaluations right now in March, so I'll want everybody's, to get decision raise onto the spreadsheet after that. We are looking at doing a 2.8% COLA adjustment, so you just see that I've written it in there, and it's haven't applied any numbers to what it actually looks like. And the town has typically historically used what Social Security gets as of January 1st, as our COLA. So Social Security about 2.8 to January 1st, that's what we use as our measure. For our employees, and kind of that's what we use. So just letting you know, that's why you don't see any numbers changing at all
Right.
in this one. So.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments?
And health insurance won't be in there yet until we get our costs.
That's what I was gonna ask about. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good then.
Thank y'all. Have a good
Appreciate
day.
it, Josh.
Thanks for always supporting us.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that.
No, no, you're okay.
Was you late too?
We just figured you went on another cruise.
Oh, soon. We're looking.
I guess we wanna see if Jabbo can pop up. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
But since we do have some time, maybe we will talk about health insurance.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, so, we've been given a heads up by our broker, which is Eben, that's who we use now. And I'll just first say, we've been very fortunate that our health insurance premiums, I'd say over the last 5 to 10 years, have been fairly stable. I mean, we haven't had a lot of big increase. A lot of places, I mean, health insurance is just continues to be such a challenge in our country to pay for it as employers.
Yeah.
We, Blue Cross Blue Shield has been our, the health insurance company that we've chosen that are broker. They get quotes from United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, some other ones. And so far, it's been competitive to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. But one of the things that's helped us to keep it that way has been the fact that they've allowed us to be a non-ACA compliant. We got grandfathered into this non-ACA compliant
We had this
window.
plan before.
Yeah, before the
So
affordable.
then they said you could be grandfathered and
Right.
keep the plans. which was-
Yeah, so, yeah, before Affordable Care Act came, we had this designation, they let us grandfather and keep it non-ACA compliant till this year. I guess we've exhausted our, but I mean, we've had years where it has been, we've had decreases in premiums, which is just odd. You know,
Yeah.
usually you kind of count on some. And we've done things to manage our plans, so some of the deductibles have been raised, we have co-pays in there now, there's a co-insurance element, there's a max out-of-pocket, there's all these things. But we've been given a heads up that we're no longer grandfathered in this non-ACA designation as still being compliant. So we're anticipating a big jump this year. And they're working on quotes, even our brokers working on quotes, obviously from Blue Cross Blue Shield, but other providers as well. And I mean, our goal is to try and not disrupt our insurance value, you know,
Yeah.
like what you get for your dollar and quality of healthcare coverage for our employees, without having to make, you know, big changes on there. So we're holding our breath right now, and we just wanted to kind of give you a heads up. I wish I had more specific numbers, but those aren't, we'll be getting those.
Probably get some numbers by the end of this week or first of next week.
Yeah.
But I did fill out forms Guardian,
No.
I mean,
Jump.
pretty much anybody that offers insurance in North Carolina, we send our information.
We prepared for a big hike.
Yeah.
I know we went up 47.9%, so.
So I think we heard about 30%. So basically,
Yeah.
also they sent a letter of verification that they were no longer having our plan, like, oh, well, maybe to this plan, and it'd be like over 30-some%. So
Yeah, we prepared.
One other thing just that keeps
Yeah, let's go.
our risk not as high, I mean, we could be paying a lot more, is we're generally, if you spread the risk, we have a lot of young males because of the police department, and that's our biggest department, so that keeps some of our risk down. So younger people in there, usually younger males, and so that
So I'm glad
has
it's not just
helped.
us, but they're also
Yeah.
facing very large increases.
Let's see, firefighters are usually very fit people in that, so I don't know what's going on over there in Skyland, but. Just kidding.
They also ran into buildings that are on fire.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, we got one person's in cancer, so, you know,
No.
yes, that kind of jacks it up a little bit. But I think Fletcher went up here, I think they went up significantly amount, I want to say
That's what
30-some
I-
percent.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe it's the trend for our area is kind of sounding, like, because I do think, under the grandfather, the pre-ACA plans, they really looked at your, like, demographics in your group. Now, when you go to an ACA plan, you look at more of your region-wide, so that's why you see everybody kind of going up by the same amount. So,
Comparing everybody to.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, so it's different.
We've
So-
tried to find another risk pool, but we don't have enough employees that one had a minimum of 50 to be able to get into it. So, which,
Just so we are doing our due diligence, to be able to
Yep.
provide a good benefit to our employees and just going out and seeing.
Yeah, we'll definitely do whatever we can do to make sure we still get good benefits for
Yeah.
Yeah,
staff.
absolutely.
thank you, yeah.
So we can hang
It's
on.
our
to
goal.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was just a good time to talk about.
Yeah.
this.
That was a good time.
That's good, yeah, I was gonna find something else in here to talk about, fill the space. I don't have any good jokes, so.
All right, Jabbo, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you for coming down here early.
Oh, I'm just right behind you there. It didn't take me long to come. Thank you for this opportunity to, once again, get together and discuss budget needs for the Public Works Department. I appreciate the interest that y'all show in our department and each and everything that we do. And I'm just going to go ahead and start right in. And we'll go with, on the overall budget, I've asked for several increases of just incidental things. Department supply, that's just a small item that we need a couple $1,000 for. It does provide a lot of services for this. Landfill, our landfill charges went up this past year, and so we're having to adjust for that. And recycling, it gets an increase on the contract each year. So we've done that, and uniforms, just a slight increase on that. Disposal fees, it seems like more and more, the amount of brush that we have to get rid of is just really increasing. And so with more brush comes more cost with everything. However, now we're not taking it to the Henderson County. We take it to a site off of Old Brickyard Road, Garbage Pile, and we save $5 a ton there. And so that's good. It's close. There's never a line like going to the dump in Henderson County. Yeah, so that's time savings right there. Okay, and even our equipment, as our equipment field increases, we have to make the cost meet what we have that's in need of repairs. But I have asked for 4 things. The first item I asked for was a 2-post auto lift. We currently have one in the Public Works Department that's been there for forever. And several years ago, we got a 4-post. And that's a very stable and a very secure lift for us to work on. However, certain times, we have to have a 2-post lift. A perfect instance would be, back in the late fall, the fuel pump went out of the Parks and Rec truck. And so we pushed it down there, put it on the lift, and you couldn't put it on the 4-post lift because in order to take the fuel tank out of the back to get to the fuel pump, you had to take the fuel tank down. So we put on 2 post lifts, and it was teetering. So we ended up having to block it up just to keep it stable. Safe, probably not the best, but we got it up, got it out, got it down, put it back in there. And that's the big issue of our 2 post lifts. Now they have these things that, I call them stabilizers, but they got a technical name for it, I think. Let's see, what is it that they call it? They call it direct spot position. So it will automatically, you can reach it out and it tells you what spot to go to for the weight it picks up. And then they have the different blocks in there to adjust for each one of them. Because as the thing picks up, if you don't have it blocked up just right, it'll hang down or hang forward. Most of the time it hangs down back, and that's where the unstableness of this lift does. Currently, if our lift's tied up, we're shut down because we can't get nothing else on it because we don't want to use that lift except for just what we have to, just certain items that we do on there. But this would increase our productivity. I've been here going on 14 years. And when I first came, our mechanic, about 30 to 40% of the time was spent working on vehicles. Now, almost 99.9% of the time, he is working on something. The only time he's not working on vehicles is when we're shorthanded and we're running garbage for 2 days on one day. That's when all hands go to that. But our mechanic, his duties has increased tremendously. And one thing we try to do is make our shop safe. And we try to make it more productive. It's not the best English, but we want to be productive in everything that we do, instead of just having everything tied up. And
Gentlemen, not that it matters, how old is that old lift? How long has that served you?
I'd say since they first put the building in there.
Okay, so it went in when that,
When was Public Works started? You was here.
I
So it's been well over 20 years.
so it's very old. Just-
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
Yeah, it's very old.
Now, is that price with it installed?
Sorry? Yes.
That's not bad.
no, it's not.
The only thing we didn't look into would be if we have to cut out and put a bigger footing underneath it. If that's the case, that's something we can do there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll go on. Our second item is still working on our shop. And over the past, twice before, since I've come before y'all, we have asked for these oil drum pumps. Beforehand, we just had a hand crank, and you pour it into a bucket and you pour it into that. And with our garbage truck, it takes 11 gallons. So if you fill up a quart can, that's 44 trips you gotta make across through there for you. And these things here have been a lifesaver for us. We got our basic oil for the diesels and for some of the cop cars. And the next time we got one for our hydraulic tank, and it sits beside the door so we can pump these out, and a different type of oil now. Now, with the new vehicles, there's so many different viscosities of oil. The cop cars, some of them run on 0.5, some 0.10, and so we're having to expand our storage of what we have. And so in order to do that, it's a whole lot easier, and it's a lot more precise because these things are calibrated to where that you can put it in. You're gonna put in 6 quarts, you just put it in. If it's 8 quarts, you put it in. You don't have to worry and measure and do all that. And since our fleet is expanding through different things as far as what the requirements are for oil, that's why we wanted to use this. And it makes the life of our mechanic a lot easier to where he can just know that which one I'm getting to, and he just goes and reaches and grabs the whole thing, drags it over. All your shops that are your major shops, that's what they use. And it's just keeping up with the times, I guess you could say. The third thing that I was asking for was a paint sprayer. And that's something that we can use throughout the town. We striped the parking lot this spring, and what we done was no, this ain't spring, I guess it's last fall, yeah, last fall. Last time we had warm weather, how's that?
Yeah.
And so what we done was we borrowed Parks and Rec's, walk behind a little paint sprayer that put the can in upside down that they marked the fields with. And that's how we done that. It's, I've reached out to several contractors to do this, and it's so expensive for what we do that it's more than what this paint sprayer would cost. So, and I talked to Parks and Rec also, and that's the way they were doing their parking lot down there. So if we get a paint sprayer, then we can set it up, and it does have a nozzle that you can just push it and walk. It also has a detachable wand, like the crosswalks up here, where we can spray paint those. If you look, a perfect example, if you ever drive out Underwood Road, over there at Apple Tree Home, Apple Tree Place, there's a crosswalk there, and it needs to be painted again. And you go through South Chase, places where the stop bars are, and where it says stop, and some of the S's tore up, it says top, and you pull over and look, see where the bottom is, because you don't know where you get on.
If they stop.
So we just have to, you know, the more we can do with these things, the better it is. And it won't be used just for us, it'll be used for Parks and Rec, because they have to, you know, there's a lot of parking spaces down there. And especially now that we have the crosswalks, it will go very well towards doing, it's a time saver. I've talked to several departments that use this, and they say it's the best thing in the world. I talked to them about, you know, the thermoplastic, and told them what we use it for, and they highly recommend we not use that. And it's a little bit different. What it is you heat up the pavement, put that stuff down, heat it up, and it melts onto that. And it's very expensive. So this is what they recommend that we use.
I know we talked about that in the MPO and the TAC last week, and there's a lot of problems with the scrapers.
Oh, yeah.
Scraping that stuff up, that thermal, and it being gone.
You can, when I worked at the DOT, everything was done when they paved the road. And they put thermoplastic down, the warranty was good, and for a year, or until the first time it snowed.
Yep.
And if you ever look, you can see the stuff. You'll see yellow. If it's on the yellow line or white, be pushed up and still left as a residue when the snow's gone, because that's where it goes to.
Yep.
And they just recommend that would not be something that we would need, if this would be a better option. All right, and the last thing,
And Jeb, I'm sorry, just back on the painter, it does a much more, I don't know, use the right word, detailed or just better quality job, that
Yes.
painter, than, I mean, like noticeably than trying to use a baseball line
It's more
sprayer on
efficient
there.
too, because the aerosol from the other ones that you use from the Park Direct now, you're losing a lot of paint.
Yeah, yeah.
well, the Parks and Rec one that we used, it was sort of funny to use it, because if the line is this wide every year, the paint sprayer would do about 2/3 of it. So you'd have to make 2 trips. And if you weren't careful, your wheels would run in what you painted, so you'd have to do half of this one. You can keep working around, then work your way back and do it again. If you didn't, you'd have little wheel tracks all across it too. So, you know.
So you're doing it twice.
Yeah, so this will be a lot better for us, and it'll be, it's more economical. You know, you can buy paint into the 5-gallon buckets of paint, because you go buy a bunch of aerosol cans. Expensive. And they are very expensive. Used to get them for a couple dollars, now they're up to $8 to $9 a can. So, this would be a cost savings item for the town also. And the last thing I was going to ask for, and it's really not for me, but I guess it is for us, but it is not, but it is, so we can just go round and round. The chief is running out of room downstairs in his evidence room. And they have a storage room adjacent to the evidence room that is connected, or separated by a chain link fence from ceiling to floor. And in the storage room, they keep their files, uniforms, odds and ends of that nature. But in the evidence room, he said some of this stuff they have to keep indefinitely. So the more the town grows, the more problems we have, the more cases that they get involved with, they have to store some of this stuff, and they have to store it for a long period of time. And they've run out of room. I mean, it's floor to ceiling down there. And it's a secured area. You can go in it, but you have to be supervised, you have to sign in, and it's time for them to increase. I wish they just make that whole room the evidence room. It'd be easier, but they need the storage in there. And so what we're looking at is going underneath here into where the gym is and boxing off on this side of the weight room where all the junk's piled anyway that they got in there, and make about 18 by 18 room. We would build it ourselves, sheet rock it, secure, put shells on the inside, put door on, and have electricity run to it. And this is mostly for him. I think he said he'd probably reiterate when he talked to you earlier about all the needs. He just tells me what he needs on that, and I'm not real sure how they want to do it, but we will. This is something we would do. It's a project that would help, and that is the future space for the town here. Or most of the police department, because they have grown and they've expanded. And it get rid of some of the clutter and the chaos that's down there. All right, I've talked for quite a bit. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you think it would be feasible, there's a conference room downstairs, it's not part of the police department, it's across the hallway, to make that the gym, and then they could make the gym area part of their storage, or?
The gym, the conference room would not be big enough.
Okay.
They say it's a conference room, but it's a table and chairs, and about all I got room for in there.
Okay.
Does this include the ventilation system and all the systems that they have currently?
I'm sorry?
The system that they have that keeps it flowing like the air?
Yes, it's
In
out.
that room? I don't know what it's actually called.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Like the air and the heat, yeah. It's in there.
HVAC and that.
Yeah.
But see, that would keep whatever they store in there at a regulated temperature.
Yes.
And so, but it wouldn't be like it'd be an office in there. But if they did put offices in there, that's something that could be added on to, because there's the ductwork and everything is there for you. But the electricity's not, so we'd have to have electricity run to it.
Jabbo, and I don't know if you know, they don't have a need to separate some of that airflow in there from the main system in the building,
In the evidence room, yes, they do.
do they? Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. That has its own system in there, and it's got a electronic air filter that's separate. It's supposed to catch the,
Bad stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because used to, when it's not working, you can tell.
We ran into that at the sheriff's office.
they had like
Yeah.
a big indoor marijuana grow bust,
Oh, yeah.
and they had to put a bunch in there, and then this is not long after we moved in here, and they realized we had to do something to upgrade the ventilation.
I figured,
Yeah.
same, yeah.
Yeah, you could walk in the basement and down into the police department, and you think, whoa. Are you sure they're not using it back here?
I got behind.
It's like lunchtime.
Yesterday, I could smell them like it was in my car. And that was on the interstate. I couldn't imagine being locked up in a room.
Yeah,
But we do have that system in there, and it vents out on this end of the building.
Yeah, right now.
Sounds good.
That's it.
What
Thank you.
what else? Anything? We're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I've always said that about you, Preston, that you're good.
Thank you.
Well, and you too, tell all your people we appreciate it.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
They do a hard job.
And they appreciate y'all.
And it was a big help finding that garbage pal to save some money with our disposal costs over there. So that was a good find, because it keeps going up with our transfer station tipping fees over for Henderson County, and I'm anticipating it's going to go up some more, so.
We looked at, when we started doing this, we looked at all different avenues where to go. And Garbage Pail was not operational at that time. The place that we used, they got out of it and didn't use, they done away with it. We looked at some of the stunt dump areas around through here, over Mills River, and their price is astronomical, I'll tell you that right now.
Glad we were able to get that down.
So, when we go to the county, and it's cheaper than everywhere else, that's not normal, but then they come in, and it works out well for us.
Sounds like a win. All right, we appreciate you,
All right,
sir.
thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we got,
And I'm sorry, I was on my phone here because I was trying to communicate with the fire department. So the chief, I asked him if they can come early, and he asked about 10, because he's in a meeting right now, so he'll be here at 10, so
okay.
try to move on to some other things. Yeah, are you ready, Tyler? Okay, and then maybe we'll let the police department know that we're way ahead, and
I appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you all for having me here. Last about 6 months in, and I'm really enjoying everything. So this is my first budget with you all. So please don't be too mean to me. But going through it, it's largely the same big ticket items and stuff like that I mentioned previously in January. But I can go through, I guess really, the line items stay mostly the same. The only change really involves one of the decision packages, and then also I've asked for a uniform budget. We've never had a uniform budget, so we've never had any Fletcher branded polos or anything like that we can wear to conferences or to trainings or anything like that. So I've asked for a small budget for me and my other planner to have that going forward. So I can kind of jump into the decision packages because I think that's probably the most impactful. So I kind of pitched this at the January meeting. Teresa is actually going to retire, likely September, October of this year, and she's been a great asset to the town. This is actually, I think, her second career, so she's already retired once, and she'd be retiring again with this second. I think this thing's got some feedback. So she is looking to retire again, and then with doing that, trying to figure out what that position looks like, because I've kind of put some feelers out there to see how hard it would be to hire a part-time planner. I've asked Land of Sky, and they've said that basically they help communities, smaller communities that have part-time planners, put them in those positions, and
it's not you.
It's not you, the street sweepers out there. We thought the same thing.
Okay, cool. I was like,
Jabbo timed that up, just
He really did.
just to mess
Honestly,
with you, I think.
But like the town of Montreat has a part-time planner, and they contracted with Land of Sky, and they were like, we want to bring this in-house, and they had it open for over a year and still couldn't find anybody to fill that position. So with all that in mind, I was thinking about turning it possibly into a full-time position. That way people would have benefits, they could do larger amounts of work, because a lot of the time now, Teresa's here 16 hours, so whenever she's not here, I largely need to be in town hall in case somebody comes in, or so it really limits myself from going out and doing inspections or doing pre-construction meetings or anything like that. So if we had someone else here, that would kind of help with that. The position used to be full-time prior to the recession in '08. Then Eric was very forward-thinking with that, and so instead of losing the position altogether, he moved it down to part-time. So I would envision this position probably doing a lot more of the day-to-day, like handling a lot of the people who come in looking for permitting, maybe do some code enforcement. So it'd be a lot more of the zoning aspects, and I would still handle all the large-scale planning operations, and then floodplain and stormwater and all that stuff would still be stuff that I would handle. With that being said, is there any questions about the position?
I think it makes sense.
Okay. So the other thing is, it's new. It was A little bit of a curveball for myself as well. I had assumed that we had included it in our budget that we're currently in. So with our stormwater program, we're required to be an MS4 community just due to our relationship with Asheville. We're required to have this stormwater program. We had our audit back in October, and basically your audit happens prior to your final year of your permit. So every 5 years, we have to redo our permit and redo our stormwater management plan. So both of those are due in June of this year. So I assumed that we had planned to like wrap that into our current year's budget and have that done this year. Well, I've spoken to the state. We don't have that currently budgeted in this year's cycle. So what I'm asking for, and I've asked the state, and they seem agreeable to it, is that we submit a draft stormwater management plan in June, which takes a little bit of uplift on this front end, but the majority of the work will be due or be done in the next budget cycle. So we can basically encompass all the costs of this renewal in this budget that I'm presenting to you here. And basically what this is the price McGill gave to aid staff in doing this renewal. We technically, I guess, could do it by ourselves and without the aid of McGill, but I think it would take a lot more staff time and be a lot more of a time-consuming effort without McGill's assistance. But either way, we will have to do this renewal no matter if it's funded or not. So I think the big question here is whether or not we have McGill aid in that renewal, and the cost that's provided for this renewal is the amount that McGill has requested to aid the town in that renewal process.
We don't have money this year, we could.
No.
Go ahead.
In fact, we did a budget amendment recently to cover a little bit of an overrun
Okay.
with that. And just to give some perspective, this is not like an inordinately large sum of money for consulting fees relative to our stormwater permit, the MS4 permit, because we've had 30,000 budgeted in it, we've had more budgeted in it from year to year. So, and again, the 24,000 will cover the brunt of the work of McGill helping get the stormwater management plan done, and then the permit. I'm trying to remember how much above the 24,000 that we'd need their help in implementing the MS4 permit.
So
or
the
MS4
normal
plan.
stormwater line item would stay the same. So, well, it would, I say it would stay the same. I'm defining it a little bit more because historically, we've had $30,000, 3,000 of which is technically supposed to go to Land of Sky. Well, I'm spelling it out a little bit better in my budget that 30,000, because McGill has been using the 30,000, and then the Land of Sky, I'm assuming we've pulled it from somewhere else. So I'm making it clear that 3,000 is going to Land of Sky, 30,000 is going to McGill, so 33,000 in total for the yearly operational budget. And then the stormwater management plan update is its own standalone project.
That works for every 5 years.
It would, every 5 years.
It's
so
going to
it's-
be an ongoing thing, like in next year.
Yeah. Okay. And in the next permit cycle, I'll be in this position for 5 years, so I hope maybe the McGill's involvement may be lesser, so it may be a lesser expense in 5 years.
In the 30,000 that we've had in there for like annual ongoing implementation of the requirements of the MS4 permit, we've usually been below budget on that. We've finished it under 30,000 at the end of the year. This year's a little different because we've run into the need for more consulting costs from the audit and then getting compliance with that, and then this build up to getting the new MS4 permit and the stormwater management plan along with it.
Yeah, the audit was outlier for our normal budget, just because we had McGill on site for 8 hours a day for 2 days. And that really took up a lot of our normal operating budget for stormwater this year. And then responding to our audit reports and that kind of stuff. So it's been a lot more work this year than normal.
What?
Street cleaning.
What questions do we have for Tyler? Well, I think it, honestly, I think with the stormwater, especially with it being a 5-year cycle, this probably makes sense to do. Then in addition to that, if I recall correctly, when this MS4 came into play a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Or never it did, it felt like it was.
Been more than that, but.
Yeah, it felt like it was pretty highly technical. I feel like I remember Eric saying like, communities were getting dinged on things and it wasn't super clear about what the guidance was or what we were supposed to be doing. So any kind of expertise we have is probably.
Yeah, and,
Probably
you know,
good.
Tyler's getting acclimated to this
Yeah.
and you've been taking some classes on relative to just becoming more proficient, understanding the 6 performance standards in this. Plus, we're still developing, like, how much can Public Works help with this? So, you know, the state keeps putting more requirements on, like, what happens in implementing this, like, for example, the stormwater improvements needing to be, these stormwater retention areas, or they call them BMPs, that's the right term. These BMPs being inspected, and making sure someone's inspecting them, and then I guess if there's issues, who's following up to make sure they repair those or make improvement, so it's becoming, and those aren't bad things, they're just, they take more time and more expertise.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if we don't have any more questions or comments, Tyler, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank y'all very much. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Tyler.
it.
We got, we got a lot of time.
Yeah, we got a lot of time. And you said Chief Griffin's gonna be here at 10.
He's gonna be here at 10.
Do we wanna jump to maybe do admin, governing body?
You want me to do
whatever?
revenues here for a little bit?
Let's
Jump to
do it.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. If you go to your revenues tab, jump into some of this here. So this year, or at least where we're at, year-to-date, we're hitting most of our targets, but I've done this on this first page here, some of these bullets for you in the past, and so I'm just going to hit some highlights and then show you some other information in here. Heather did some charts, but so our largest source of revenue obviously continues to be property tax, and so I've got a listing of the values. Our budgeted values, we're at 1.897 billion. Then what we actually build, and we typically bill a little bit more than what we budgeted. We billed for the current fiscal year 1.917 billion. And then the projected values, so we get from the assessor's office monthly an estimate of values and kind of where they're at in determining projected values for the coming years. I just got the March ones and updated this. We'll get one in April, we'll get one in May. I'll use the April's estimate for the recommended budget that I'll present to you. Will be based on the April values for, you know, that part of revenues, for property tax revenues. But, so you see the percent change there, not much, 1.17%. We've been doing 1 to 2% growth in our revenues, which is, you know, it's not bad. Obviously, in some years past, we've been doing like 2-3%. And I think part of our, you know, just our tax base maybe has leveled off a little bit on that kind of mix of industry to residential. We haven't had a lot of new industry in or any major expansions, so that can impact it. But I mean, still, we're stable and still pretty broad tax base, just not a tremendous amount of growth. Our actual build, you know, we typically every year have been billing more than what we've budgeted, and it's been upwards of 100,000 more in actual tax levy, actual dollars. So that's helped to give a little bit of a buffer in there. So, again, we'll have our final estimate by May on values in there, and I'll even adjust that a little bit for the budget that I present to you for the public hearing in June. So there'll be one other adjustment. One of the other things that affects the property tax base or that estimate of values, so real is the biggest portion of it, and then personal property, and there's two parts to that. There's business personal, which is machinery and equipment, and then the other is individual personal. The business personal, they usually get extensions, a lot of the industries, so the tax office hasn't processed all of their filings. So that always lags, and if you want to see our breakout, if you go several pages into this full-color spreadsheet, at the very bottom is the town of Fletcher portion, and this is the update that we get from the assessor's office. Now, obviously, you can see the biggest portion at 1.57 billion is the real, so that's property and, land and buildings. And then business personal at 205 million. And you can see it's a negative amount right now. That'll come down likely as they finish processing all of the filings for machinery and equipment from businesses. And then next is individual personal, so that's like boats, RVs of people, 8.4 million, and that's a positive there at 8.26%. And then public service at 21.1 million is, that's a valuation on utility infrastructure. And then, I think I'm saying that right, Heather, so correct me if I'm wrong. And then last is motor vehicles, so our property tax on motor vehicles, and that's at 125.1 million. And that's generally been pretty healthy. And you see that right now we're at 2.2% projected growth. So that gives you a little idea of the breakdown of the different components that make property. Sometimes people think property taxes, it's just like on your house or business and the land, but there's more to it. Running through some of the other kind of highlights here, on the residential construction side, we've still have the authors going on Rutledge Road. They're getting in, I think, the last phase. Doing site improvements over here with BSC Holdings, the project next to Town Hall, the one north of Town Hall here, and that'll be the landing at Meadowview is what it'll be called, and that'll be 299 units. So those are kind of our two biggest residential things happening. We've also got the development that is being reviewed. It's a major subdivision. It's not that many. I think it's 23 units, something like that. The one off of Bernie Mountain that, we talked about the potential annexation. Yeah. Do you remember the name of, I'm sorry, Jim?
Behind the grocery.
Yes. So, the residential moving there and still contributing to that kind of growth in our tax base, not a lot of that. And really on the industrial side, I know we've got a public hearing coming up for April, but not a lot of announcements or new industry coming in, but our existing industry's been stable here. Our next largest source of revenue is sales tax, and that's been a bit of a roller coaster the last 2 years. Typically, for many years, for those who are newer to council, sales tax has kind of been this consistent, really growth from year to year, and it being our second largest, it's a very important part of our tax base. But we've had decreases the last couple of years, and now it's starting to tick back up. It's grown, but the projections and information we got from the state and what we put in it didn't meet what they were projecting. So we had some growth, but we were falling below that, so we actually had decreases in our total projected sales tax growth for almost 2 years now. This year, good news is we appear to be on budget. Last year we were below, and I think the year before we were below.
170,000 by budget 2 years ago, like 77,000 last year. So.
Yep, and thank you, and now we're about 4% higher than we were this time last year. And, you know, very preliminary, I don't have the projections, obviously, of what we think we're gonna hit in each of these categories, but I think we will grow our tax base, or grow sales tax above what the base is in there now. So we may hit somewhere in the 2.47 million, and we're at 2,350,000, so what we have in there for current fiscal year. So that's good. And again, what impacted that a lot, we had really high inflation, we had really high interest rates, and so there was some pulling back, I think, of consumer spending, and it seems to be coming back a little bit better now. Not tremendously, but more, so. Utility sales tax, that's our third largest source of revenue, and we've only had 2 quarterly distribution. We get that on a quarterly basis. Sales tax comes monthly, utility sales comes on a quarterly basis, and it's excise tax on electricity, pipe, natural gas, and telecommunications. And we're a little bit below budget, but the final 2 quarters are usually where we have a little bit of an uptick. So we're anticipating what we should hit budget with that, but we're about 5% below right now. And then I've got some bullets of some of our others. Some of them aren't real large. ABC is a little bit larger one, but cable sales tax right now, we're at $2,500 lower than budget through our first 2 quarterly distributions, and probably won't hit budget on that, but it's a very small part of our overall general fund. And that's this distribution tax based on cable, which fewer people have cable, and it's also on, I think, satellite. And so with streaming services continuing to grow, that's going down. Disposal tax, which is a portion of tipping fee revenues that we get to help with recycling, that's on target right now. We're about $281 above budget through February. ABC distributions, so we are, that's been a very strong source of revenue to us. Their sales have been down a little bit, but our distribution is still on target and actually above budget. They're thinking a little bit of what their comparison where they're at monthly to last year at that same month has been skewed a little bit by Helene. There was some offset or, just difference in sales activity, I think, was attributed to that. So, and hopefully that's the case, but just as a consistent source of revenue for us. But, we budgeted $325,000 in the main distribution of that, and we're about 81,000, or excuse me, let's see, we're above budget on that right now. I don't have the specific amount here, or $2,500 above budget right now. But that's been a good, consistent, strong source of revenue on the percentage of profits that we get from the ABC sales. We renegotiated that years ago, and it's in a much better level. And especially since they paid the store off a number of years ago. ABC Law Enforcement, which is another component of the ABC distributions, that's above budget right now, at almost $500 above budget. We budget $14,000 annually for that. Land use permits, so these are permits that our Planning and Zoning Department is issuing. We're a little bit ahead of budget on that right now, and looks like we should hit our target of 7,000 for the year. Recreational activities, so this is everything that Parks and Rec is bringing in. The probably largest portion of that revenue is from our summer day camp program. We may not be hitting our target of 120,000 on it, and the reason is the middle school camp component of day camp. They're not doing that this year, and so that will drop down some of the revenue on it. And then the last bullet, I'm going to mention in here, interest on investments. We've had a really strong source of revenue from that because we've been able to move so much money to the Capital Management Trust, which is a regulated place where we can deposit monies that gets better than average interest, and it's regulated by the state. But, interest rates had dropped a little bit, and we also had Helene, and we were moving some monies away from Capital Management Trust into our central bank account for paying the bills. Good thing we've got all our reimbursements from FEMA. We just got the last one.
Hey, awesome.
Congratulations,
So-
thank you. Yeah.
We are very fortunate. We're way ahead of a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
With FEMA.
Way ahead.
It's,
The county's hurting.
Yeah.
no, granted, we did not do debris removal, and big thank you to the county that they did offer that to do it countywide, so in the municipalities, and we took them up on it, so that helped keep our expense. But everything we did with the park and our other expenses, we've got that reimbursed now, so, and I'll thank Heather and the other staff that worked on staying on top of all the requirements of FEMA, so, good job. But, yeah, so, but our interest on investments is down a little bit. We're gonna see how we end the year, and who knows if our cash flow is better in our main bank account here. We'll see how it is, move some more money over into the Capital Management Trust that earns better. So, and I mean, we're in good shape. Our fund balance is very strong right now, as you know, per our discussion last month on our fund balance policy and where we're at with unassigned fund balance. So, and then if you look a couple pages, I showed you what was the breakout there. Heather put together some charts here, and you can kind of get a sense on the revenues on the sales tax, the very first one, the bar chart, kind of that volatility there in sales tax over a 3-year period, and it kind of stops at December because at this point, we don't have, there's a 3-month lag, so we don't know past then for our revenues for the current fiscal year, but you can see how it had dropped going back to 2024 and now coming back up with 2026 on the green bar. Then there's also, you've got a line chart there on the following page on sales tax, and you can see how that was tracking over the 3 fiscal years. And then the next page is utility sales tax. And you can kind of see how it came up, but then it usually over those first 2 quarters, it's lower, and then it comes back up, over the final 2 quarters. And then cable sales, and that's just, yeah, it's a downward trend there, and that's because people have cut the cord there and are going much more of these streaming services. So that's a little on revenues. I had a page there after the bullets on the budget about budget issues. Development of the town center, obviously that's a focus. We're still working with retail strategies. We'll do one more year and then reassess that to see if we want to continue doing that. I'll just say, I don't have it. It's in the current year fiscal year budget, but not the upcoming one. And I think we really need to assess, are we getting, enough
Yeah.
benefit to continue that? Maybe address that if we think we are, we want to continue as a budget amendment in this budget we're working on. So we'll be paying it out for another year. We just did for April and going forward. But if we want to reassess that next year, we can do that. But I don't have it in here for this budget we're working on.
Yeah, we should definitely evaluate that when that comes around, because I'm not sure what else we're getting from them.
Yeah, I mean, I know they talk to the retailers, they're trying to work on the the Lulu's, that area, that stretch through there, that the Youngblood zone, the Cars Weisgood property that's next to Baldwin Circle, and our property here, so.
Okay, it's not really producing.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't landed anything yet, and so that's why I didn't have it in here, because I didn't want to assume on that. And they say it takes about 3 years. We're going into year 3 right now.
This is year 3? Okay.
So
That's like
I figured it'd be a
40,000 a
good
year.
time to, pardon me?
Ain't it like 40,000 a year or something like that?
45.
45, I knew it
Yeah,
was pretty
yeah,
expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Bearing fruit.
So, we'll go with that last and see if we start getting something that's, producing enough to make it worth it. So, but them, and obviously we're continuing communications here with Lewis Real Estate Group and hope to get something in this next year under contract with them. And I'll have something on the budget in the upcoming meeting to talk about transportation relative to that meeting we just had with the MPO, Tristan Winkler, and we had someone from, forgetting Steve's last name, from DOT was at the
Steve
meeting as well.
Williams.
Yeah, Steve Williams.
Yeah.
So I've emailed you about it, but I'm going to put something on the agenda for the April meeting about that, so.
Steve's our district engineer, he's doing it, gives us all our MPO updates.
Okay.
Project updates.
Is he division or just?
Yeah, Division
Okay,
14.
division, yeah. Let's see, fund balance in the library project. So, at some point, we'll need to be making a decision, or should be, per our fund balance policy about the excess unassigned fund balance. And the library thing has come back up now, and obviously, we're going to be monitoring that closely to see, is that something you're going to be making a contribution to if we can do a joint project with the county, or does it wind up being one of the other types of projects that I've discussed with you? I've also just, I know I shared with y'all, they asked just kind of out of the blue from Congressman Edwards' office, a letter of support for the sewer projects. I'm going to follow up to see what maybe they might have been trying to identify that could be funded or be used to fund that project. Because they didn't really articulate that when I talked to that staff person on the phone. But
Yeah, I mean, it'd be wonderful if we can get an appropriation for that.
yeah. So that's, and then extension of the Cane Creek Greenway, that is underway, it's under design. Are we going to be funding anything beyond section 3 and 4? And that can come back to the fund balance discussion as well. But you've got money programmed for sections 3 and 4, which is that kind of center part of the trail going on to the Charlie Owen and then the town's big piece out there. And then we've got section 1 as a bid alternate. So that's in play. And then, goals for FY '26, '27, we're going to try and keep our rate at the same amount, with the exception of if you wind up funding some of the requests from the fire department, that would be, that's a 1.5 cent increase that they're looking, and it'll probably take that to be able to have enough revenue to cover those things, or, and you designate that much of the rate, that increase, the 1.5 cents to that. We just, we don't have our complete revenue picture yet. We will get every year we get a document or memo from the League of Municipalities, and that helps to provide additional information on our state shared revenues, like sales tax and utility sales. With that information and our last set of values, then I put that kind of draft recommended set of revenues against our expense requests. And, we try real hard to get that balanced in there without a rate increase. So that'll be the goal again, but I don't know yet, based on expense requests and what that final revenue estimate comes out at, if we need a rate increase or not. My goal every year is to try and do it without one. So, and we've been fortunate to be able to do that for quite a long time. So we'll see, and I know you're going to hear from the fire department here shortly.
Down, I think.
It is.
Kind of another goal is trying to keep 6 cents of our tax rate towards CIP. And then the last is, developing a little bit more on our marketing plan with the town center project, especially if it isn't Lewis Real Estate Group that we do another agreement with. So that's kind of it on revenues. If we want to go into CIP, or I know the chief will be here, fire
Yeah, I
chief
see
will
him
be here.
walking down.
I think you said
Well, hey,
he's
Mark,
coming
I
down.
have a quick
You want to
question.
do a break, or I'm sorry.
So I have a
Yep.
quick question. It kind of came to mind when you were talking
Yep.
about utility sales tax. I don't know
Yes.
about other folk on council, but every now and again, I'll hear some residents talking about just some underserved areas when it comes to internet service. And I know there's some pockets of Fletcher that just have just one provider, and that exists for me too. Optimum's fine, I don't have had any issues with it, but I know I've had some residents in Windstone perhaps. I think perhaps they only have Optimum too.
I'm in a blind spot.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious, and I know our hands are tied a whole lot by the General Assembly here, but is there anything we can do to try to recruit some more providers to come out here, or maybe help them expand out some of that, I don't know if it's fiber or whatever infrastructure they need, so maybe some other areas can have some, extended services or different options too?
I mean, we can reach out to, and really the other big competitor is AT&T.
Yeah, I know Spectrum's not really out here either.
It's basically
Yeah.
Optimum and AT&T, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to do a commercial here for
Yeah.
one or two providers. I know there's some others, or you get the satellite stuff
Yeah.
that I may not be aware of, but, it's probably reaching out to AT&T and see if they're willing to extend infrastructure out there. They're kind of they're the only game in town is those two providers right now.
Yeah.
I could reach out to Land to Sky, and I know we had that West Engine
Yeah, I remember that.
initiative,
Yeah.
and see if they know of anything else that maybe can hit some of these.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile, because a lot of residents just have the one option. And again, it's been fine for me, but apparently for some residents, it hasn't been as fun, so competition isn't particularly bad either.
Yeah. But it should be, Windstone, they should have an option of AT&T as well, but
Do
I'm
they?
not sure.
I'm
I'll
not
find
sure.
out. Yeah.
Well, okay, Chief, you're here, man. We appreciate you walking down and being here. And we will move on to you, sir, and the floor is yours. And thank you for being here early, too.
It's not a problem, sorry, I tried to be here a little bit earlier, we had a meeting
That's okay.
to go with. So, first, I want to say thank y'all for everything you do for the community. I know what y'all are doing serving, it isn't the easiest thing. I do feel y'all are doing it for the right reasons. I don't think anybody's here for any other political aspirations or so forth. I know with this comes a heavy burden, especially this time of year, when we talk about budgets. And your efforts don't go unappreciated. You know, in my dealings and talking with some people with the town, or that live in the town, they really do appreciate what council has done in the way they look out for things. And I'm saying some of this because it's obvious we are asking for an increase. As a taxpayer, I hate that. While I'm not a taxpayer of the town of Fletcher, I understand it's a burden on everybody. You know, so the goal is to keep everything as low as we can and deliver the service. Also, I realize that government entities, the town, the fire departments, police departments, everybody is not exempt from the economic pressures we've faced, the inflation that has happened. It's hit everybody, and there's certain places it's hit worse than others. So, we have looked at a lot of different things for funding. Asking for this has really become a last resort, but I think this is kind of where we're at. So to hit a couple of highlights with this, since 2021, our budget has increased in income about 31% overall. On paper, that looks good. However, when you factor in, and it varies depending on which source you look at on what the inflation date is, whether it's been a 22 or 24% in that time frame. So if we say 24%, our budget has operating budget, purchasing power, to be able to hire additional staff has only increased 7% over that time frame. That might seem okay in a lot of things. Think, okay, you've gone up 7%, inflation's only 24%. The reality for the fire service is we've been hit hard. I can't speak to other industries, how they have or haven't been hit. Fire engines at that time we bought was $580,000. Today to replace that, we're at $1 million. That's a 70% increase in cost. Turnout gear. The gear we wear for MVAs going into structure fires was $2,600. Today, that's $4,700, so that's an 80% increase. Vehicle extrication tools, we've seen a 50% increase. SCBAs and hoses, we've seen a 35 to 40% increase. And all of this is stuff we can't just go out and buy anywhere. It has to be certified to the NFPA standards. And while we do shop, we don't just pick one manufacturer and stick with it. We do shop and price around, but this is a reality of where we're at with that. So you can see, even at the 7%, we're nowhere near coming close. Even at 31%, we're nowhere coming close to sustain what we've been trying to do. So the big thing with this is just sustainability. I don't think it's, I'm trying to be nice about this. In the past, I don't think there was a lot of planning done at the fire department here. At the most, it was planned out for about a year at a time. They didn't truly look going forward. And to help with that, they were able to overcome some of the shortfalls because they always had a surplus in payroll at the leftover at the end of the year. We had a turnover rate of 45% on average, is what the fire department was facing. They normally always had 6 or 7 open positions. In the past 12 months, our turnover rate has been 4%. So we've made huge strides. Along with that is there's not all that excess of payroll that they used to pull out of to do different things. So we're having to make sure we're budgeting for that. Staffing, with this, the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, they are setting standards that the fire department should try to achieve. It's not a law or regulation. It may come into that with OSHA, with a new thing, but that's kind of a different matter. They have one of the standards they call 1710, and that's what you're based off of on responding to structure fires. Staffing to do that for a residential structure fire without any exposure, so they're saying no exposures is there's nothing within 50 foot of that house. You should have 16 people on scene in under 8 minutes. On paper, with our mutual aid, we're not quite meeting that. We're probably 10 or 11 minutes before we have that number there. However, the reality is, for our full-time staff, we're staffing at 10 on a shift. Because of concurrent calls, our reliability is only 68%. So meaning 32% of the time, we can't send 10 people to a fire straight off. They're going to be delayed. On top of that, with our mutual aid, what we have tracked in the past year, 23% of the time, one of them is delayed coming to us because they're tied up on a call. So then that puts us at a shortage. Also understand with that, that's if there's no exposure, so there's no other structures within 50 foot of the house. Inside the town of Fletcher, over half the residents aren't like that. When we start looking at a Riverstone, or we start looking at, or not Riverstone, Livingston Farms, or we start looking at South Chase, this really complexes our problems in responding to this. Having what we need, if we pull up at 2 o'clock in the morning and we have cars in the driveway, we have a fire in the house, we're going to presume somebody's in there. So our primary goal is going to be search to get somebody out of the house. It's not going to be to put the fire out. A lot of variables come into that. It may be to put the fire out, but our primary goal is life safety, to rescue people. So now we go in and we search, and we don't have anybody to help with exposure protection, and that fire has now spread to 2 adjacent houses because of staffing. We're trying to do what we think we can to save the most people, not necessarily save the most property. And those are decisions that we may be faced with, going forward. So I'll say that because of staffing. And that doesn't take into account the apartments. When we start looking at apartments and exposures, when each apartment is a separate exposure, or we look at something such as the Sycamore Cottages, or we look down here at Berkshire Way, where we got how many units put together, tight quarters, the exposures, what these houses are built out of. So if we have a fire and everything's vinyl siding is just a petroleum product. So it's going to catch on fire. Even if it doesn't go into the wall, the overhang that comes off the side of the houses, the eaves or soffits, depending on where you're looking at it, is all vinyl. So that fire spreads and it runs through that attic very fast. So saying all this, we have done studies, and we didn't just take NFPA numbers. We've had a house that we burned this past Monday, and we did a lot of training with each shift on running different scenarios. What task can we accomplish and do? I can't see where we need to have 17 people on shift for the department our size and the call volume right now. I think that would be a lot of waste. I do feel we're about 3 short on a shift. We probably should be at about 13 people, because we're going to have to rely on mutual aid for a lot of this. And everybody around us is the same way. Nobody can fully staff that outside of the city of Asheville. Everybody's relying on mutual aid. So with that, part of this increase, depending on funding for our station, is going to go right back into staffing if we get extra funding for station. Now, I'm not going to lie, looking at this, our goal, if we got this, depends on how much reevaluation goes up next year. We would actually probably look at staying the same if we were to get this increase. We wouldn't look at dropping down unless we're looking at what Buncombe County's facing at a 50% increase. I think that is something different. But as long as we were no more than a 12% increase, we would look at staying the same, because we need to add the additional staffing. Our facilities, our station in Naples, we are still struggling with FEMA. We did finally get some numbers back. We have already started talking with some different different contractors, and one that a lot of the fire departments have been using throughout the state since we're not a county, a state, or a town, we can go with a design-build concept. That seems like it'll save us a lot of money. They're at about $425 a square foot, so we'd be about $2.7 million. If we go back where we're at, our plan would be to be a two-story building. Apparatus bays would be downstairs. If we ever flooded again, we'd pull the trucks out, let the flood water come in, let it go out, we'd clean it up. The upstairs should be untouched, and that's where all of our living quarters would be. One of the companies we've talked with feels they can do that for about $2.7 million for the complete build. To go the FEMA route, the pricing they're giving us is about $850 a square foot. So to replace the existing building, we're at about $2.5 million. Well, if we replace exactly what we had, it doesn't meet our needs. So we're really not accomplishing anything. To get the square footage we're needing to go through them, we're at about $5 million. So at that rate, we're about the same out of pocket either way, whether we go the FEMA route or we don't. If we go the FEMA route, we're at about 24 months out at best before we'd be in it. If we don't go the FEMA route, there's a chance we could probably get started this summer and be in it by the next July. For the same amount of money, I don't know how y'all feel, as town council. With that, we're putting an extra burden on ourselves and going through different processes, and we're really not gaining anything on the end. So if you see us go that route, understand, we have weighed and looked at these costs in trying to do what we feel is best overall. I will say, I was in DC last week for the Fire Congressional, we talked about some different topics. I've heard some horror stories from some of the people up there that got stuff being funded or approved through the federal government, and when the time came at the end, it wasn't fully funded. They decided they didn't have the means to fully fund it. So that does scare me as well, if we're looking at doubling the cost because we'll get half of it, then we've doubled the cost and we only get a quarter of it, we've cost ourselves a lot more money. So we can't find out a lot of good questions, of course, because they're still shut down. Since FEMA's fallen underneath the Homeland Security, we can't get any good answers. I did ask for some federal appropriations money just to help us with that. So that's talking about the station in Naples, and I know that serves a little bit of the town, not a lot. Our station in Hoopers Creek was built in 1984. It never really was envisioned to have the staff that's there now. We're running 3 people there. They had done some remodeling over the years, trying to make it better. At the same time, I think they backed up. They took a bathroom that was in there out. So it's not there anymore. So we got 3 people up there with 1 bathroom. We're to the point, just the way it is as we age with males, we get up in the middle of the night going to a call, we got to go to the bathroom. And so you got people standing in line to go to the bathroom, takes them longer to get out the door, and they actually, I know it sounds bad, they have a bucket up there that they'll take turns using bathroom in the bucket in the base so they can get out the door quick enough. So we've got to do something in that station, and we're going to be at about $1 million to do that. There is no dedicated separated firewall from where the guys sleep up there in the apparatus, and we saw that happen over here with Mills Rivers. They had a truck electrical system, whether it was in the truck or not, caught on fire, and it burnt the building. That did have a dedicated firewall. This one up here not. We've got to do some stuff to increase safety. So right now, we're looking at about, at best, probably $3.7 million and going in construction costs that we need pretty quick. So the budget I submitted, I think, showed a surplus of $190,000 at the bottom. That would be earmarked for finance payments. I didn't put it in there because we don't have that number, but that is a goal. I know I submitted a lot of stuff to y'all. I wasn't trying to do it to try to make it look disoriented or hide stuff. I'm trying to do it to be as transparent as possible going forward, so you understand. So the capital improvement request that was in there, and I don't know what Mr. Beaverdorf told y'all, that wasn't capital money I'm asking for y'all, it was capital money I'm asking for the board to be able to spend, that they've got in a fund balance. So don't want y'all to sit there and think, hey, they got a fund balance they're not using. Had a fund balance, and they haven't, the board is willing to do this. They haven't known what it needs to go on. So we have truly set forth and done a comprehensive plan on what we need to do. So I've listed all of that in there. There'll be some things that I'm sure won't be funded in that this year, and I understand that. So that was some of the highlights I had here. I don't know if there's any specific questions that y'all have got.
Do we have any specific questions? I'll say I appreciate such a transparent and very open and just detailed presentation. Very helpful.
So the one thing I haven't hit on, so we started inspections in July. We're about halfway done with everything completely in the town. We didn't get everything done by the time we were able to get everything brought up to where we needed to truly get out in the field doing that. We have found a lot of small discrepancies, some places the county probably didn't hit and inspect, and a lot of small things. You say small things. We've been trying to work with the business owners, no, not trying to do anything punitive, but they're like, well, they've never said anything to us before, or they've had exit doors blocked or inaccessible. And what that does is it makes it an issue for the public safety. It's not just anything against the building, and that's what we're looking at is, hey, we need to make sure everybody that comes in this place can be safe. Both your employees, especially anything that's open to the public. And Scott Justice has been the one going out doing that. Everybody's been he's been working really well with people to help them work through this stuff. Everything we've seen, I mean, it hasn't been anything that's cost a business probably more than $150 to replace some batteries or to add an exit sign or some things like that. We're just trying to make sure that they're protected on what they're supposed to do, that we're doing our job with the way it's supposed to be, and not trying to be overly critical at the same time. So I just want to kind of let y'all know where we were standing with that.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, I was gonna say that in the past, we hadn't had this much of a depth of, budget, and we do appreciate that, so.
Yeah.
And also, you kind of segue to the inspection, I guess, or do you think we're going to go up on that? I know.
I did.
That was this is the first year, this is kind
I did ask for that, and I think I had a breakdown in the budget of how much time that was taken, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can find it. We're looking, it's truly costing us about $51,000 a year to be able to do that when we break everything down. This first year is probably costing us more than that, but we're going to have to own that because of getting up to that going forward.
Does the 1.5 cent increase include inspections next year?
No, that would be something separate. We originally were thinking that would work, but breaking it down, it really wouldn't be where we need to be with that. And I'm not finding it right off. I will, give me just a second.
And I don't know if yours is the same, Robert, it's right here.
Okay, it's the back.
Yep.
It wasn't with where the budget and everything's broken down at for that. So the way we had come up with this, showing the percentages of how much time, our goal is to do 50/50 this current year. Inspections are at about 68%. We think we're going to get that back down closer to 50/50 once we get through this first year. So we allocated everything as a 50/50 split. So when we look at the salary, that's 50% of what that person makes. So that, they're about 67 or so. And by the time we break benefits down, the cost of the vehicle over 7 years, or again, that's at a 50% cost rate because we are using it for other stuff as well. Vehicle fuel, so that's what I try to break all of that stuff down and give you what it's truly costing us to be able to do that. That's not trying to inflate numbers to make anything extra.
So roughly increase of $11,534.
Yes.
I know this year was the test, I guess,
Right.
would you want to say it? or-
And I know y'all had talked about charging for inspections or not charging for inspections. I don't know where you'd want to be. One thing I think we probably ought to start adding a charge for, or the town should start charging for, is when developments do stuff. And I know they have some fees with the county. We spend a lot of time with plan reviews and going over that. And then the new Ingalls down here isn't in the town. If it was in the town, when they bring the fire alarm system, that's probably going to be 2 to 3 days worth of walking through because you have to test each individual smoke head, reset the alarm, and you have to do that. So by the time you go through a system such as that, it's going to take a lot of time. And that was stuff I had, was an oversight on my part when we talked about it last year. We have dealt with, like, is this a cottages? I can't remember the name of this development that's going in here, son. The hotel development that's going in at Broadmoor, we have spent, I don't know how many hours dealing with them. And it's all these little places start coming up and trying to find out if they're going to be able to go in. Seasons Apartments, we've been up there because we have to do an inspections. When they run the line in for the sprinkler system underground, we have to inspect that. We have to inspect it once they pour the slab. And you have to go up there, there's an acceptance test that's being done. So there's a lot of inspections that happen when a place is being built as well. So maybe you look at some type of initial fee, whether that's $200, $300, would have to find a fee schedule that would be fair based off the size of the business, that you charge them up front, and then that kind of helps cover that. And to me, that would be a fee paid to the town, not to the department, and then y'all are using that for that funding.
Since you're going multiple times on a new construction.
Right.
Yeah, that would probably cap, I guess, bridge that gap of 11,000.
Makes sense.
We used to years ago bill for fire inspections. And we stopped doing that, the county took it over, and then they stopped charging, and they weren't charging us.
I can see what Chief Griffin's talking about, since these new constructions, we're going back 10, 20 times, that you're taking away from
Spend a lot of
everything
time
else.
there.
You know, one place that if you charge a little extra in the front end, that helps.
Not to mention the sheer size and quantity
Yeah.
that's coming to be developed and put in place.
Yeah. What other questions, comments?
Chief, I don't know if you're ready, but I know we talked a while back about apparatus age versus replacement. And
Yes.
where you stand, and maybe to educate everybody on if you were to order it today.
So if
When
we would
do you
order, in talking with some sales reps that just stopped by, we're not actively pursuing anything. It was very common prior to 2020 that an engine build took about 365 to 380 days, so you were just over a year from the time you placed the order. Right now, a lot of them are at about a 30-month mark. That is down from being 38 months out. A couple of them are working hard to get it back down to 24 months. The problem is, used to be you sign the contract, and that's what it is. Well, you sign a contract now to build, and then like 8 months before they build it, they add whatever inflation rate has happened to that truck. So you're signing a contract for a vehicle, and that price could actually change. So we have one truck, our hope would be to replace it in the 29, end of 29, beginning of 30 timeframe. As it stands right now, we'll have to order that truck in 2027 to do that, saying there, a cheaper engine that will work for us is going to be every bit of $1 million. And I never thought would see that cost. If something was to happen, we're having to start planning the ladder truck as a 2012. Our goal will be to staff it as soon as we have that, and we're liable to put in for some safer grants to help get that started. But when we get to replace that ladder truck, if we replaced it today, that's about a $2.1 million vehicle to replace. They are going to go up, from what I'm hearing, and this will affect garbage trucks as well, probably $70,000 to $80,000 next year because of emission standards alone. That's what Cummins or Detroit is going to be charging to add to that engine for them to be able to meet the regulations. So that is a huge burden that we're having to deal with on cost as well. As far as a replacement cycle, this past year, we have bought some used equipment. We bought a 2012 engine to replace a 2002 with like almost 90,000 miles that was not really reliable. So the next one we'll be replacing is a 2004 model that's got 70-something thousand miles on it. And the NFPA standard is they don't want anything to be over 20 years old like that. That's in a reserve status, so we can get a little bit more. As long as we can maintenance it and it stay viable, and it'll work for us. So I think that there'll be a lot of things to look at in the future. If we spec the right truck, can we re-chassis it onto a new apparatus? Can we take the fire truck part out and put it on a new truck and save some money? I think there's a lot of companies starting to look at some things like that, to look at these costs that are just soaring everywhere to be able to keep that down. But apparatus-wise, that engine, outside of some small vehicles, and I'm sure if y'all have looked at any of the cost of police cars, from understanding they're about $75,000. And if you have one in an accident, it's not, well, we can get it here in a couple months, it's 7 or 8 months out as well. So everybody I know is feeling this, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Chief? Thank you for being here, Chief, and for your presentation. I thank you for being here early. We appreciate you.
If there's anything y'all come up with question-wise, make sure that Mr. Beaverdorf can get that to me, and I'll get you any information I can to get answered back, so.
Sounds good.
That's a very thorough.
Yeah, thank you.
Presentation, so we appreciate it after what we've dealt with.
Well, thank y'all. So I really do appreciate what y'all have done and continue to do for the town, trying to manage its growth, and part of that. So one sheet I did have in there, and I see it printed out extremely small. It's supposed to be on a bigger one. I got that from a tax assessor's office on the average value of homes throughout all the fire districts and municipalities in the county. So it shows like what a penny brings. So the one thing I did not hit on, if y'all will bear with me for just a second, they got a cent and a half is going to cost the average homeowner in the town of Fletcher $55 or so a year. And then understanding how the insurance rating works. So right now, we're currently a 3. We were a 3 by 0.7 points. So we almost went down to a 4. If we were a class 9, so if our funding got cut back down to 7 cents, and we went to a class 9, everybody's homeowner's insurance is going to go up. So tax for a fire department is one of the few taxes I know of that'll truly save you money. If they're spending it right and can drive that insurance cost down, the homeowner's going to save money if they pay for homeowners insurance on their homes. Well, I would fear to say most everybody in this area, probably 85% are carrying a mortgage, and so they have to have homeowners insurance. So ultimately, at the end, we are saving money by that. I know I've said a lot of stuff about where we want to be. I do think past administration, they were happy if somebody showed up on a fire truck. I don't want to be that way. I want to make sure we show up and we can deliver a service. The service comes at a cost, and ultimately, I know what we want to provide, But ultimately, that's going to come up to y'all on what y'all want to provide for the citizens, so.
Sounds good, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Y'all want to take a 15-minute recess?
Sure.
So I'll recess, so we need a motion to recess until 10:40.
Motion.
Okay, motion is a second. All right, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, recessed until 10:40.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, that was a lot to,
Not worked out for the cost. He's got several, so the evidence. Now she's back to wait. July 1st, so if we keep going to take care of it first. Because he gets out there, he just gets like, I mean, I appreciate what he's doing. I guess, but that's, listen to what we're saying.
But plus I went through and had all my
Ready?
logos changed.
all righty, we'll call this meeting back to order. Chief, you're here, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I was going to say good afternoon, but good morning, council and mayor. It's good to see you always. I don't have a lot to say today, so if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but mine is fairly simple. I will tell you the pollen's been getting to me a whole bunch this last week, so I might start coughing, just bear with me, and we'll take a break, we'll get through it. I'm assuming you have the budget before you, but there's a few categories, line items, where I just ask for a reduction rather than go through them individually. I will just tell you regarding those I've asked for a reduction, it's just based on historical data, just looking at the last several years, and where we are with hiring and staffing, that we don't expect to need as much funds as we maybe did, a couple years ago. And so I just, based on historical data, reduced those few line items. Increases, M&R vehicles, I just asked for a $2,000 increase, and that's solely just because of inflation and the cost to do business and the rising cost of product. We're not adding anything, we're not doing anything different, we just need to be able to pay our bills, and everything seems to be going up. Public relations, I asked for a small $500 increase. It has been the same for several years now, and when I started in 2022, we had 24 public relations events, and this last year we had 77 public relation events. Now, I say public relation events, sometimes that's meetings, networking with other agencies. It isn't always something where you're gonna need to be handing out, handing toys out or handing stuff out like we do at the park. So all those wouldn't necessarily apply, but we are doing a significantly more public relations, and so we need the swag to hand out when you're at the parks and such. And we embarrassed ourselves at the park last Halloween because we didn't have enough candy, so every child got one little piece of chocolate for each child. And we don't want to do that again. So the next time Halloween rolls around, I want to make sure they at least get a little small handful of candy and not an individual piece. That was kind of embarrassing. So that's what they ask there, is just we can continue to do more of that good work and more of what we're doing. The only other thing I have on here is there isn't a radio upgrade. We really have no say-so in this. This is a state requirement. It is our Viper service, our Viper radio service, which is used for emergencies. You know, hurricane would be a perfect example, so we could talk to other jurisdictions. And ours, as of January 1st of 2027, ours will be obsolete. We don't have to get rid of our radios, but we have to update them to a new system. And so we've already quoted that. That's the $8,200 to have all our radios updated. And again, that's a state mandate. Not something we wish we didn't have to do that, but that's something that they threw upon us as we continue to evolve. And as time goes on, we can do these. So that's really all I have, other than some of the stuff you already heard that maybe fell in our IT manager's budget. And then Public Works is going to help us do some remodeling, Lord willing, you know, maybe about a year or next winter, as we start to think about growth and think about where we want to be in a few years. We want to start making some changes, so we're prepared for that. And that was probably discussed earlier today already.
It was.
So that's all I have, fairly simple, not asking for anything crazy. Questions?
Any questions, comments?
Straightforward.
Yeah, thank you, wonderful job. All righty then.
Chief?
I move to admin professional services.
All right, so a little further going, I know we've been playing this all day at the binder. Sorry, we didn't do a very good job coordinating for you. So today I'm here to speak about three kind of different departments. So the first one is the administration department. And this department is mostly I call human capital. It is Mark, myself, Christine, Susan, and Michelle, our new employee. So basically this covers our salaries and our benefits. There's a few other just small little things within this department, and I'll just kind of highlight. So we have like fuel. We occasionally use the Expedition out here, or the, what's it called?
The Equinox.
The Equinox, it's gonna be. And so occasionally we use fuel for that, but we haven't had to use it much, so I decreased just based off of what we've been spending the past few years. And then I also decreased the motor vehicle expense, and that is something that we get charged separately from the state to collect the motor vehicle taxes. And last year, you see that we came in at about $9,700, and the year before that was like $10,11. So I think we can be safe and bring it down to $13,000. So again, there's really not much within this department except for salaries and benefits. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay. So if you'll flip over in that same group, a few pages, we'll go to the professional services department. And this is the department that kind of includes all of our like contractual things that we do throughout the year. So the first thing you'll see is a Greenway Stream Bank line item. And for many years, we've kept it around $20,000. Typically sometime during the year, we get some type of flooding in the park, and we need to fix some of the stream banks. Last year, obviously, we did not because Hurricane Helene and FEMA took care of that. So Mark just said that maybe we increase it $5,000, not knowing what this next year. But in previous years, we have used those funds to fix the areas next to the stream on the King Creek Greenway. The public accountant is increasing by $500. So at this past council meeting, you approved the contract for this current fiscal year's audit, which then will occur in next fiscal year. Legal, I'm leaving as is about $5,000. The professional services contract line item is increasing $13,000, and this includes extra McGill for general services. We have to pay 2 actuarial evaluations, which keep going up every year. There's lots of different things within this thing. So basically it's all engineers, other accountant fees. When we had to do the fire department separate that thing, we have to do that. So basically it all includes those things. Now I'm talking fast. All right, so Fletcher Town Center. So you'll see here that is decreasing by $30,000, and that is where we were removing the retail strategies from the Fletcher Town Center. So again, if you wanted to agree next year to do that, then we would add that back. But Mark basically said to remove that next year. Then the economic development, you'll see that it decreased by $23,500, and that was more of an internal decision. So basically that $53,000 includes a $25,000 to the Henderson County Economic Investment Fund and a $28,000 to the Partnership for Economic Development, and it did go up. So they requested $3,000 more this year, so that makes up the 53. But the $23,000 that was in there in this current year's budget was for an economic incentive payment to one of our local companies. In the past 2 years, they haven't met their incentive agreement. So I just have removed that. If they were to meet it next year, maybe we would go back and do a budget amendment. I just hate keep plugging it in 25,000 and they haven't really met it, so.
Yeah, who's that?
Tagios.
Tagios?
Tagios had an incentive agreement, yeah, when they
What are
came
they-
in.
And they're not meeting one of those?
It's not uncommon for them not to hit their targets in the incentive agreement, like either timing or the total dollar amount or number of positions.
Okay.
And so they didn't, they're there and they're doing.
They're doing well,
fine.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
They just didn't hit, and like I said, it's not uncommon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. We actually, I won't say rarely, but not often do they hit everything just right, and they request the incentive payment. Like Continental
Sure.
did, and so a few others out there, but a lot of them don't. And
Okay.
it's not all a bad thing, because they're there and they're generally doing well. in
Yeah,
some
that's why I wanted to
extent,
make
but
sure they
just-
were doing
Yeah, they
okay.
don't hit all the capital investment targets or the number of positions in the incentive agreements. That's why it's good that they don't get that unless they hit that right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And then we reviewed everything this past year, and they didn't meet it, so that's why we felt comfortable with maybe removing that moving
Okay.
forward. So Apple Country Transit, you'll see a $1,040 increase. And last year, you approved a 3-year contract with Henderson County to provide the transit service. And so this is already plugged in and for. And then you'll see contracted fire inspections, and this is where we budgeted this current year for $40,700. So I had removed it because we weren't sure exactly where we were.
So I guess you got to put it
But
back
sounds
in
we need
there.
to.
So
Yeah, with 11
that's why I
increase.
asked, just to clarify, it was
Yeah.
coming out of the 1.5 cent increase they were requesting, or?
Well, because initially, it indicated that
It was
it
gonna
was
be
going to be
included.
absorbed,
Yeah.
in there, so.
So that's why
it's not
I
here.
asked him that question
Yeah.
during the
Separate, yeah.
presentation. So if, according to his budget, that would be an increase of 51,000.
Yeah, like 11 more
Yeah,
thousand.
so 11,000, so that is professional services. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Questions? Nope.
All right, so we move a few other pages over. And this is our town facilities budget, and I always like to call this the catch-all department. It has a wide variety of different line items. And just so, I'll just walk you through a few of them. In discretionary, we just keep some additional funds in there, just in case for things that happen. I think we may have done an iPad this year.
And we
Postage.
typically, excuse me, don't hit that
Yeah.
for anything, but it's just there in
Okay.
case.
And then postage is 5,200. I think we're very close on meeting that. That includes, mailing all of our accounts payable and all of our tax bills. We did look at possibly moving to a printing service for a mail and to mail all the tax bills, because it does take a lot of time to print. We all have to individually fold them and then stamp the envelopes. But we found a whole bunch of our letterhead still, which has the tear off. So we will wait and use all of the paper that we have here before we maybe look at sending it out. So we kept the postage at 5,200. Utilities, kind of maintaining at the 66,750. We spent about 64,000 last year, so I think we're kind of comfortable keeping that. And that basically includes most of the facilities in the town, except for the park. So the park they have their own utilities line item. Travel and training, so this is things for myself and Mark to go to conferences and classes. Advertisements, I'm keeping that the same at 1,400, and that includes our tax advertisement that we do, as well as any job postings that we do through Indeed. The wellness program is keeping it at 8,000, and so we have different, like retirement, we've had lots of retirements this past year, so we've spent some funds. It does our Christmas programs and just various wellness things throughout the year as well. Department supplies, so that is just, again, paper, water products, coffee, and those things. Newsletter expenses, again, we do mail out newsletters to people who do not want to do to the email subscription. So that includes all the paper products and the stamps to mail those to those that don't want to get it electronically. Dues and subscriptions, and that includes a wide variety of the league dues, the ICMA dues. There's lots of various dues that the town is involved in. We'll talk about liability insurance and workers' comp too, because I haven't covered those insurances. So those are through the pool, through the North Carolina municipalities. They're thinking there'll be an increase in liability insurance, about 8%, but they're thinking workers' comp may go down about 6%, so I'm hoping, but I don't have that information until probably the end of April. So I will adjust all of those at a later date. Contract services, so this is like our shredded company, our annual shred event here. We had to pay the company to come in, that comes under contract services. And just based off historical data, I did decrease that $3,100. And then M&R equipment is just kind of a catch-all for like copier overages and different things regarding some of our computer equipment. So that's town facilities. I know that's kind of everything just kind of gets in. So, does anybody have any questions about the admin, professional services, or town facilities?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work.
Yeah, thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather.
All right, want to move to governing body. Christine?
Pretty simple and easy. I didn't change a whole lot. Our advertisement has been with Lightning, and it's just been cheaper than doing it with the Times News. So that's just saved us some money. We haven't spent a lot of that over the years, so I just sort of left, just took $50 off that. I left travel and training the same, with 3 seats coming up and ethics training and everything else this year. And I just went to a conference in January. There's one in August I'm looking at, but I have not seen the agenda yet, so we kept that the same. Dues and subscriptions, the only reason I increased that is our yearly Zoom subscription has gone up again, but it's been well used ever since COVID, so we've just kept that with them. And that's about it. I don't have anything odd or whatever, and usually Heather will adjust workman's comp and the liability insurance as those fees come in. But real simple.
Yeah, short, sweet.
Easy enough. And then I think last one, we have CIP then?
Yep. Okay. CIP. So, our 5-year CIP, as you know, we just created our next 5-year capital improvement plan, or CIP, and so we'll be going into year 1. And again, it covers facilities, equipment, land, could be for new services or things to support ongoing services. And our cutoff is $25,000 for a project. We're applying 6 cents of our property tax towards this. We've been edging it back over the years, and just because of other needs and having some excess revenues in here, we were at 8.5 cents of our tax rate about 3 years ago, and we're at 6. I'm trying to keep that at 6, so we have some space in there. But so based on our current value estimate that I mentioned earlier at the 1.939 billion. What that produces in levy is 1,152,000. So that's what 6 cents at that value, and our at 6 cents of that total valuation is just a little over 1.1 million, almost 1.2 million. So taking, and of that 6 cents, we've usually used what 4 cents of the levy produces for projects supported with loans or debt, so debt service, and then the other 2 cents we try and do cash. And we've mixed it a little bit based on excesses in either of those 2 categories or deficiencies. So our current commitments for this coming fiscal year on the debt service side, so what we'd be supporting with that 4 of the 6 cents. We got the town hall improvements, that's just the loans from when town hall was built, acquiring the land to the north of us and then rebuilding Old Cane Creek Road. That's debt service requirement, just over 326,000. The town center property on Highway 25, I was buying all the parcels there for that stretch between Fanning Bridge and Howard Gap. So our debt service for the upcoming year is just over 153,000. Then we had to start putting it within debt service, and this was a GASB accounting requirement for our financial statements and auditing. So the copier lease payments are in here at almost 11,000, 10,695. And then subscription payments, and that was another auditing thing we had to include within debt requirements. So that's at $14,625. So our total debt requirements for the coming year are just over $504,000. But the amount that 4 cents of the levy produces is $768,225. So that gives us some room or excess there of $263,397 on the debt side. So if you turn the page, the amount that we're budgeting for projects with cash, all right, I should say, we're trying to include with projects with cash. These are all projects that are listed here that are in year one of our new 5-year CIP, and we're trying to, if we can, pay for those with cash. I do have an asterisk by one of them, and I'll talk about that, the garbage truck. But we've typically, on the cash side of the CIP, covered our police car rotation, so we've got that in there. And so at 3 vehicles, it's $175,000. The next thing is the garbage truck. So adding another garbage truck to our fleet is about a $450,000 cost. I've got an asterisk by that because we may want to look at financing it, because as you know, if you add all this up, there's not enough on the cash side to cover what 2 cents on the levy produces. So Heather's reached out to our company we use that helps put financing terms and crunch some numbers for us, and so we'll get that back on maybe a 3 or 4 year loan. The only thing we're a little concerned is interest rates are so high. It makes sense to just try and finance, or just try and pay cash versus finance it. But we've done that before, like a 3-year loan on the garbage truck, because it's a fairly large capital purchase. And it's paid off quickly. And the lower the term on the loan, the better the interest rate too. So, anyways, we'll check that out. But and then the next thing from year one of the new CIP is painting the first floor of Town Hall. We're going to try and do that in phases. It's time to start doing that. I mean, you saw it as a project in here, but try and do year one, do the first floor downstairs. And the next thing was this Parks and Rec utility tractor. It's just a more powerful tractor that they really could use for maintenance out at the park. And so that's at $60,000. And then the last thing was the sewer line replacement. BMCP is Billmore Community Park. So, we talked to you about that sewer line needing to be from the restrooms. So that total $775,000, unless we can move the garbage, finance that, move that over to the debt side. But what does 2 cents produce on the tax levy in there based on that value I mentioned to you before? It would be $384,112. So, that leaves us, if we try to pay for all those things with cash and do all those, we don't have to do all those, but those are all the projects scheduled for year one of the CIP. And so we do generally try and strive to get those done, or maybe move the year. That would, leave a deficit of $390,888, which we could use some of that surplus from the debt service side. So that's CIP, unless there's any questions, or are there any questions on that?
No questions.
Well,
Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that brings us to the end, so. We're fast. Well,
We're quite a bit ahead of schedule. I mean, I know we've been finishing early the last couple of years, but,
I just got a text, the food's on the way, we're supposed to be here at 11:30. So
Okay.
we'll be upstairs at 11:30.
Okay.
sounds good.
Sweet.
Well, and
I wasn't expecting that, I thought we just,
No,
there's
there's,
still a biscuit out of the refrigerator.
well, I was gonna say, there's biscuits coming, I've got catering from Tupelo Honey coming, so.
good.
got-
all righty, anything else from council? All right, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Okay, motion to adjourn, a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, we're adjourned.
Once again, great book, I mean, great put together.
Thank you.
Easy to
Yep.
understand, even for
Good.
simple minds, that's great, so.
So the rest, you think of it, you know, follow up, just reach out.
yep.